In my 40 years on the bench, I've seen confidence turn into humility in a single afternoon. I've seen privilege collide with reality. But this case stayed with me because of 3 words the defendant said. 3 words that revealed everything. You work for me. He said them to a courthouse guard who was just doing his job. What shocked me wasn't only the assault, it was the certainty behind his arrogance. Let me tell you what happened and why I had to shut it down the only way a judge can. When this case landed on my desk, it was early spring, and the docket was already full. Disorderly conduct, assault on a court officer, simple on paper, but I've learned never to judge a case by its charge sheet. The defendant was Michael Reynolds, 22 years old, listed as a college student. The file noted something else too: son of a United States Senator. I don't put stock in names, but I do pay attention to patterns, and I've been doing this long enough to know that entitlement leaves a paper trail. The incident occurred inside the courthouse during a preliminary hearing on an unrelated traffic matter. According to the report, a uniformed guard, Mr. Thomas Alvarez, 58 years old, asked Mr. Reynolds to put his phone away and step back from a restricted area. That's a routine request. It happens dozens of times a day. What concerned me most was the escalation. The guard didn't raise his voice. He didn't touch the defendant, yet within seconds things turned physical. I reviewed the initial statements, the medical note, minor injury, thank God, and I requested the surveillance footage. As I prepared, my responsibility was clear. Ignore the last name, ignore the noise, and focus on the facts, the law, and the people involved. Here's what happened that morning, according to the evidence. The hallway camera shows Mr. Reynolds pacing, phone in hand, visibly agitated. He just exited a courtroom after being told his case would be continued. He didn't like that answer. I understand frustration, but frustration doesn't give you permission to cross lines. Mr. Alvarez approached calmly. You can see it clearly. He gestures to the sign. Authorized personnel only. He says, "This is captured on audio. Sir, I need you to step back and put the phone away." Mr. Reynolds turns, smirks, and says something that made me sit up in my chair when I watched it later. Do you know who I am? I've been doing this long enough to know that sentence rarely leads anywhere good. Mr. Alvarez responds, "It doesn't matter who you are, sir. These are courthouse rules." That should have been the end of it. Instead, Mr. Reynolds steps closer, too close. He points his finger inches from the guard's face and says, loud enough for others to hear, "You work for me." When I watched the video, I felt my jaw tighten. That wasn't heat of the moment language. That was belief. Mr. Alvarez raises his hand slightly, not threatening, just defensive, and repeats his request. That's when Mr. Reynolds shoves him, not a stumble. A clear, forceful shove to the chest. Mr. Alvarez hits the wall, regains his footing, and other officers rush in. People nearby gasp. A woman yells. The camera angle shifts, but the damage is done. What struck me most wasn't just the shove. It was the look on Mr. Reynolds' face afterward. No fear, no regret, just annoyance, as if he had been inconvenienced. I paused the video and sat back. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This was a courthouse, one of the few places in society where rules are supposed to mean the same thing for everyone. As I continued reviewing the evidence, the picture became clearer and more troubling. 7 witnesses gave statements. Not one contradicted the others. They all described the same sequence: request, insult, shove. One witness wrote, "He acted like the rules didn't apply to him." Another said, "He laughed when they told him he was under arrest." The medical report showed Mr. Alvarez had a bruised shoulder and elevated blood pressure afterward. At 58 years old, that matters. People forget that. They think because someone wears a uniform, they're invincible. They're not. I also reviewed Mr. Reynolds' own statement. He admitted to the shove but minimized it. He called it a tap. I've watched enough footage to know the difference. This wasn't a tap. What stood out to me most was what happened after. While waiting to be processed, Mr. Reynolds used his phone, before it was confiscated, to post on social media. One post read, "Being harassed by rent-a-cops, unreal." Another, This is what my taxes pay for. I shook my head. Social media has a way of freezing arrogance in time. People forget that posts become evidence. By the time I finished reviewing everything, I had a clear sense of what I was dealing with, not just an impulsive young man, but a mindset that needed correcting. By the time this case came to my courtroom, it had already made the rounds online. Clips from cell phones, commentary, opinions flying in every direction. My clerk mentioned it was trending. I told her what I always say, that doesn't change a thing. Let me tell you something. I don't read comments before I rule. I don't sentence for applause. Viral attention is noise, and noise has no place in justice. What I did notice, though, was the public reaction to Mr. Alvarez. People recognized something familiar in him, a working man, close to retirement, doing his job with quiet professionalism. That matters to me. But whether the world was watching or not, my approach was the same. Everyone gets the same fair process in my courtroom. The son of a senator is no different than the son of a mechanic. The law doesn't recognize pedigree. When Michael Reynolds walked into my courtroom, I noticed his posture first, upright, relaxed, almost casual. He wore an expensive suit that didn't quite fit the seriousness of the room, no tie. He glanced around like he owned the place. The courtroom was full, media in the back, a few off-duty guards seated quietly. Mr. Alvarez sat in the front row with his wife. I noticed the way he held his shoulder. I took the bench and called the case. I looked directly at Mr. Reynolds. "Good morning, sir." He nodded. "Morning." "No, Your Honor, that's not required, but respect is always noticed." I began simply. "Mr. Reynolds, you're charged with assault and disorderly conduct. Do you understand the charges?" "Yes," he said. Flat, unbothered. I asked the prosecution to summarize. Then I turned to the defense. They argued stress, misunderstanding, youth. I listened. I always do. Then I said, "Let's watch the video." The courtroom went quiet as the footage played. You could hear the shove. You could hear the gasp. When the clip ended, I let the silence sit. I looked at Mr. Reynolds. "Did you shove Mr. Alvarez?" He shrugged. "I touched him." I shook my head. "Sir, that's not what the video shows." He smirked. "The angle makes it look worse." I felt my patience thinning, but I took a breath. "Mr. Reynolds, there are 3 cameras and 7 witnesses. They all show the same thing." Then I asked the question that mattered most. "Why did you say, 'You work for me'?" He leaned back. "Because he does. Public employees work for the public." I paused, looked at him. "Let me tell you something. That guard doesn't work for you. He works for the rule of law." There was a murmur in the room. At that moment, my bailiff approached with a tablet. He whispered that there was additional evidence, social media posts made after the incident. I nodded. "Put it on the screen." The posts appeared. The words were there in black and white, mocking, dismissive. I looked at Mr. Reynolds. "Did you post these?" "Yes," he said. "It's my opinion." I nodded slowly. "You're entitled to opinions. You're not entitled to assault people." Then I turned to Mr. Alvarez. "Sir, would you like to speak?" He stood carefully. "Your Honor, I've worked security for 20 years. I've never been treated like that. I was just doing my job." His voice didn't shake. That took strength. I thanked him. "You deserve better than that." I turned back to Mr. Reynolds. "Do you have anything you want to say before I make my decision?" He hesitated for the first time. "I think this is being blown out of proportion." I looked at him for a long moment, still confident, still defiant, still not understanding where he was. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. I've been on this bench long enough to know when a sentence needs to teach, not just punish. I leaned forward. "Mr. Reynolds, I want you to understand something." I paused. "I've been a judge for 40 years. I've seen thousands of defendants. Some are scared, some are remorseful, some make genuine mistakes." I paused again. "You assaulted a man doing his job. Then you mocked him. Then you mocked this process." I looked him in the eye. "That tells me you don't yet understand accountability." I explained my reasoning carefully. "This isn't about your father. It's not about politics. It's about respect. Then I delivered the sentence. Here's what I'm ordering, I said. You will serve 30 days suspended sentence, contingent on no further violations. You will complete 200 hours of community service, supervised, working with public service employees. You will attend anger management counseling. You will write a formal letter of apology to Mr. Alvarez. And you will pay restitution for medical costs. I explained each part. The community service is so you learn what public service actually looks like. The counseling is so you learn control. The apology is so you learn humility. I finished with this. I hope you use this opportunity to become a better man, because right now, the attitude I saw, that ends careers and lives. After I adjourned court, the room slowly emptied. Mr. Alvarez approached me. He shook my hand and thanked me. I told him, thank you for your patience and your professionalism. Mr. Reynolds stood quietly as paperwork was completed. The confidence was gone. Reality had set in. Later that day, my staff talked about the reaction online. People were relieved. Some were surprised. I wasn't. I didn't do this for attention. I did it because it was right. Cases like this remind me why the bench matters, why calm authority matters, why fairness matters. This wasn't about shutting someone down. It was about lifting standards up. Let me tell you what I hope people learn from this case. Status doesn't excuse behavior. Social media doesn't erase consequences. And respect, real respect, is shown in how you treat people who can't give you anything in return. Courthouse guards, veterans, workers, these are the people who keep society functioning. They deserve dignity. In my courtroom, everyone is equal. Titles don't matter. Followers don't matter. What matters is how you act when you're told no. Michael Reynolds learned that lesson. I hope he carries it forward. After 40 years on this bench, I still believe this. Justice works best when it's firm, fair, and human. That's what I try to deliver every single day.